And joining me to discuss this further is Dipo Olayoku, National Secretary, NNPP. Thank you so much, Dipo, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, News Central. Good evening, viewers. Good evening.
Of course, it's nice to have you around. Now, let's start this way. Based on the different court rulings by the federal and the state high courts, should this election have held?
Yes, because don't forget that even about a month ago, the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission went to court because there were some security reports that some people were trying to truncate the election. And in that court, they got an order that they must go ahead with the election. Don't forget that the Electoral Act and the Constitution of Nigeria is very, very clear. They are clear on two facts. That one, no court can stop the primary of any political party. Then it went further to say no court can stop any election. It is the law. That if you have any issue with any of these issues, either the primaries of a political party or the general or elections, you go to court after the election. Because those who drafted the constitution, they were conscious of the fact that some people, especially from our experience in June 1993, when some people under the ages of what they call ABN, I went to court to stop the 1993 elections. And that was what created the problem that came after the 1990. So it was on the basis of that that those who drafted the Constitution and the Electoral Act said, no, we don't do that. Because a lot of factors, a lot of processes has gone into preparation for election. So somebody cannot just look up and say, go and stop this election. That's why they said, whatever grievances you have with any issue, go to court. And that was why the Kano State High Court gave the ruling and joined all the political parties to say nobody should take any action to stop the election, and gave the KANSIEC, that is the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, to go ahead.
But then the Federal High Court in Kano, while halting the, of course, through its verdict, halted the council elections, cited that the alleged illegal, actually talked about, the KANSIEC being an illegal constitution. Talked about the fact that it is an unconstitutionally recognized body. So what's going to be your take on that?
The creation of KANSIEC, the KANSIEC rather, is a creation of the Nigeria Constitution. And I think that the Nigeria Constitution is the ground norm. Every law derived from the Constitution. So if an earlier court has said, KANSIEC, go ahead with your election, nothing must stop the election. All the agencies that have any role to play must cooperate with KANSIEC. I think what behoves anybody who has any issue with the election, what he needs to do, he needed to have done, was to have gone to a higher court, not to go to a court of coordinate jurisdiction to get a judgment to counter a judgment of the High Court. And if the KANSIEC already has a judgment that says, you guys go ahead with your election, so that is the judgment that the KANSIEC is holding, except there is a judgment from a higher court, not a court of the same jurisdiction. So I definitely, like I said, like everybody knows, this is not going to be the end of the story. It is still going to go ahead, but it will be, don't forget, you have to understand this history of this election we are having in all the states. When the federal government went to court, that they wanted to stop any local government that does not have a democratically elected councillor or government, that they want the Supreme Court to stop them from operating, and ordered the federal government not to pay the regular monthly allocation to the states. But when the judgment came, there was an agreement between the states and the federal government. Because if we have to go and conduct election, there's a 7 days stipulated by the Constitution, and there was an agreement which necessitated the states. You notice that in the past one month, many states have conducted local government election. Because there is a deadline given based on the arrangement they have with the federal government that after this date, then the Supreme Court judgment will come into effect.
Okay.
And all these we are struggling to meet this deadline. Other states have done their own.
All right.
But typically them, we know the party that is behind all this issue. We know them. Anything
Okay.
has to do with Kano, because of their desperation to get Kano at all costs, which they lost to the ballot paper.
Okay, so Dikwa, yes, so I understand your point. Now, before now, a few people, state actors and youths have actually expressed reservations as regards the credibility of or the integrity of KANSIEC itself to conduct, credible elections. Now, we see that your party, won all the 44 local government areas in terms of the chairmanship and councillorship seats or positions. Now, tell me, how credible is this election in a democratic setting where your party won all the seats without an exception?
But the credibility can only be questioned by a court of competent jurisdiction. I am in Kano, just like other members of the NWC, because deliberately the NWC came up with a team to go into the various polling units, the local government, central district, to go and monitor the election. And when I monitored, people came out to vote.
But it was a low turnout.
You said?
It was a low turnout.
It was a low turnout because if you look at the history of local government election, in Nigeria generally, Nigerians are only concerned about the local government, the presidential election. It is when you say low turnout, it is not a new thing in Nigeria, especially local government election. We need to go into history. But the polling units where I and my team, where we monitored, elections held, people came out, votes were counted in our presence. And from there, we moved until we got to the local government headquarters where the final results were announced. I was there and with my team. And the results were announced, the votes scored by each political party were printed out. And they were signed, don't forget, those results sheets were signed by agents of political parties that were present.
But you didn't, your roving didn't cut across all the polling units where elections were held.
That's right, where my team covered. That is why I made it very clear that where my team covered, when we moved from polling unit to polling unit, and then we moved to collation centers until we got to local government. And to the best of our knowledge, results that were announced, there wasn't any variation. And I can tell you categorically like that some party agents that took part in the election, they signed the result sheets. Some parties boycotted the election, which is typical. Election is voluntary. It is not mandatory that you must take part in every election. So those who took part, they did it. So if there's any issue, the courts are there so that they look into all matter, because that is the unfortunate thing. Our elections have become an issue. If you are talking about integrity and credibility of an election, we are talking about if there's anything we must do, what you need to do is to do electoral reform generally.
Oh, okay. So what about
if there's anybody that has any issue?
Okay, I understand. So what about the fact that, we are hearing stories that it seems as though the NNPP in Kano State is factionalized. Of course, the Federal High Court in Kano sacked all 44 chairmanship and councillorship candidates before this election after a petition was submitted. So what's your reaction to that? And of course, we did see that your party actually swept the entire seats.
Thank you very much. The courts are there to make pronouncements, and then it depends on the judgment that you already have before. Don't forget that in the 2023 election, some courts came and said they have sacked all the candidates of PDP in one state. Until the matter got to Supreme Court, and only Supreme Court saved those who were able to get to Supreme Court. But some candidates or some winners who could not get to Supreme Court lost their legitimate mandate. So Supreme Court has given the threshold. Are you getting my point? So that is the law. Supreme Court would then decide who happens to be the candidate. But as far as the elections are concerned, NNPP has candidates that went through the mills. When I say the mills, the primary monitored by the KANSIEC, and they do everything, and they were screened by the KANSIEC. Don't forget that immediately after the former governor, the Amechi victory at the Supreme Court in 2007, thereabout, the National Assembly came up with the law that before you can take part in any election and be declared winner, you must have taken part in all these processes. Okay. And the processes begin with the collection of forms. It continues with the primaries, with the screening, And if anybody didn't take part, if all these properties are taking part in all these processes, and somebody who did not take part in all these processes just come out of a sudden by fiat, become a candidate, that is against the spirit of the constitution that we practice in Nigeria now.
All right. Dipo Olayoko, thank you so much.
That two parties in this election went through the mills, all the processes they took part, and KANSIEC accepted them. So KANSIEC is not conducting the election, and they have said, okay, these are the candidates for today's election. All
right, noted. Dipo Olayoko, of course, the National Secretary, NNPP, thank you so much for your time on the news.
It's always